Listen, stop scrolling. I need you to hear me right now. There is somebody out there who can't sleep, who can't breathe right, who is literally pacing around their house trying to figure out what is happening to them. And the crazy part is, it all traces back to you. I'm not exaggerating. Their feelings for you are so deep, it actually scares them. It's not that shallow surface level crush stuff. No. This is that unexplainable, bone deep type of connection where even they don't know how to handle it. They're confused, they're overwhelmed, and honestly, they're shook. Welcome in, my loves. If this message found you, then yes, it's for you. You already know how this works around here. The universe literally drags these videos into your lap when you need them most. So if you're here, baby, you're supposed to be here. Now, before we dive deeper, go ahead and quickly press that like button. It's free, it's easy, and it helps me know these messages are reaching the right souls. And if you haven't subscribed yet, come on, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe because the universe and I clearly have a contract with your energy right now. Okay, let's breathe into this. I sat down to film this at exactly 1:11 p.m. And I don't know if you're into numbers like I am, but 1:11 is that sign of alignment that you're right where you're supposed to be type of number. And I felt this energy so strong earlier when I was driving home. You ever get that pull in your chest, like you're listening to music or maybe just zoning out at a stoplight and suddenly your thoughts drift somewhere they weren't even supposed to go? That happened to me today. I was just minding my own business and boom, the download hit me. Somebody is so caught up in their feelings for you that they don't even recognize themselves anymore. And let me be clear, this is not your toxic ex. This isn't about that person you had a block on everything, the one who drained the life out of you. No, this feels completely different. I'm not getting that heavy manipulative vibe. This isn't someone you shouldn't be thinking about. This is someone who's genuinely wrestling with themselves because they can't explain why they feel so much when it comes to you. And you know what's funny? I think you've been feeling their energy too. Like maybe you've been catching yourself staring off into space lately, feeling this weird warmth out of nowhere, or waking up with this sense that you weren't alone in your dreams. That's not random. That's not coincidence. That's energy, baby. That's the energy reaching for you. I'll tell you something personal. Just yesterday, I was sitting in a cafe, right? Laptop open, trying to write, and I kept glancing up at the door. Like I was waiting for somebody to walk in. Except I wasn't. There was no plan, no meeting. But my body was acting like it was expecting someone. And that's exactly how this person is with you. They go places and swear they're about to see you. They hear a laugh across the room and their stomach drops because it reminds them of yours. It's almost embarrassing for them because their mind is like, get it together, but their spirit is like, too late, you're already gone for them. And here's the thing, they didn't plan for this. That's what makes it so wild. This isn't someone who sat there thinking, I'm gonna fall for them. No, this hit them sideways. Like when a wave knocks you over at the beach and you're coughing up salt water, hair plastered across your face, completely dazed, but also kind of laughing because it caught you off guard. That's the energy here. They got hit by feelings they weren't prepared for, and now they're just stumbling around in it, trying to make sense of what the universe is doing to them. You know how sometimes you can meet 100 people, pass 1,000 faces, and nothing stirs in you. But then one person shows up, and suddenly it feels like you've known them across lifetimes. That's what this person's experiencing with you. They can't logic their way out of it. And believe me, they've tried. They've told themselves you're not their type. They've told themselves they're too busy. They've tried distracting with work, with friends, with scrolling endlessly on their phone. But then something happens, your name pops up in conversation, they dream about you, or a song comes on that ties them back to you, and suddenly they're right back in that whirlpool of feelings. I don't think you realize the effect you've had on this person. It's like, imagine a puzzle they've been trying to finish their whole life, but one piece was always missing, and then you came along and you didn't just fit, you locked the whole picture together. That's how it feels to them. And yeah, that's confusing, that's overwhelming, because when you've lived your whole life thinking love is supposed to look one way, and then the universe shoves you in front of someone who makes you feel everything all at once, shoot, that'll spin you out. So if you've been feeling restless, if you've been wondering why you've got butterflies in your stomach with no reason, or why your dreams have been so vivid lately, it's because this energy is circling you. Somebody is energetically thinking of you, pulling on your frequency. And no, it's not toxic, it's not dangerous, it's not that karmic mess you already escaped. This feels softer, deeper, more real. This is the kind of energy that makes a person sit in their car in the grocery store parking lot for 50 minutes just to breathe and figure out what's happening inside their chest. And honestly, I don't even think they're fully aware of what they're feeling yet. That's why I said they're confused. They know it's deep, they know it's real, but they don't have the words for it. It's like trying to explain a dream to someone. How do you make it make sense when it's more of a feeling than a fact? That's the space they're in right now. And here's where it gets even more interesting, because as I'm sitting with this, the energy shifts. The heaviness of confusion is still there, but underneath it, there's this warmth, this almost childlike softness that just won't let go. It feels hopeful, like the way spring feels after long winter. That moment where the air still has a chill, but the flowers don't care. They're blooming anyway. That's the energy surrounding you right now. It's innocent, it's tender. And honestly, it's kind of sweet in a way that makes me smile while I'm saying this, because no matter how messy or complicated their mind might be, their heart is carrying something really pure for you. But listen closely, because here's the twist. As hopeful and innocent as this feels, there's also that forbidden edge to it. And I know you know what I mean. It's like Romeo and Juliet energy, but modern. Like, the feelings are real, the connection is undeniable, but something about the situation makes it complicated, maybe even off limits in their mind. Maybe it's timing, maybe it's distance, maybe it's their own life circumstances, but I can feel it. This love, this emotion, it scares them because they weren't supposed to feel it. It wasn't on their to-do list, you know, and yet here they are, caught up in it anyway. The word that kept hitting me when I was driving earlier was epiphany. Like somebody had this lightning bolt realization about you. They're looking at their life right now, their choices, the people they surround themselves with, and it's almost like the veil dropped. They can't deny what you mean to them anymore. It's that sudden click moment when you realize, oh my God, this person is not just another person in my life. They're important, they're a piece of my story, maybe the piece. That's what's been swirling around them. And I don't even think you two are in much contact right now, if any at all. This feels like someone who's been silent, who maybe pulled back, or maybe things just fizzled. But energetically, phew, they're screaming your name. I'm going to give you a little metaphor that came to me. You ever light a candle in a dark room? At first, it's just a little flame, right? Harmless, almost fragile, but after a while, you realize that tiny flame is casting light on everything, shifting the whole atmosphere of the room. That's you. That's the role you've played in this person's life. At first, maybe they didn't notice, or maybe they brushed it off as nothing serious. But now they can't ignore it. You've illuminated things inside them that they can't unsee. And that's why they're confused, because once you've seen truth, you can't go back to pretending it's not there. And let me tell you, this energy is shy. It's like a kid who has a crush but doesn't know how to admit it. So they just sit there giggling behind their hand, kicking their feet, hoping you notice without them having to say a word. That's the vibe. It's almost embarrassing for them to feel this strongly. They're not used to it. And because of that, they don't really know how to act. So what do? They stay quiet, they watch, they sit in their epiphany and hope the universe gives them a sign on what to do next. The forbidden love energy. That's the tricky part. Because while their heart is wide open, their mind is running laps. Is this allowed? Should I feel this way? Am I crossing a line? They're fighting with themselves. And I don't mean in a toxic way, I mean in that deeply human way where love collides with fear, with rules, with everything they thought they knew about how their life was supposed to look. It's like they were driving on one road, convinced they knew the route, and suddenly they saw a detour sign with your name on it. And now they're pulled over on the side of the road, maps spread out, asking themselves if they're really supposed to go left instead of straight. And here's what I find so endearing. Despite the confusion, despite the fear, the energy is not heavy, it's not dark, it's not something meant to drag you down. It's hopeful, it's childlike. It's like, imagine two kids running barefoot through a sprinkler on a hot summer day. That squealing joy, that unfiltered fun, that sense of, this is the best moment ever. That's how their heart feels when they think of you. And that's how you know it's real. Because no toxic person, no karmic mess can replicate that kind of innocence. So let me ground this with a little piece of my day. Earlier, I caught myself humming this old song from when I was a teenager. I hadn't heard it in years. But the second it popped into my head, it was like I was transported back to being 16, lying on the grass, staring up at the sky with zero worries. That's the exact kind of nostalgia and purity this person feels with you. You bring them back to a simpler version of themselves, a softer version. And maybe that's why it feels forbidden, because they don't know if they deserve something that pure. I'll say it again. This isn't about constant communication. In fact, you might not be speaking at all. You might even think they've forgotten you or moved on, but energy doesn't lie. And the message that keeps hitting me is that this person had a massive realization about your purpose in their life. You shifted something for them, you cracked them open, and now they can't unknow it. They can't unfeel it. Even if they tried to bury it, it would keep resurfacing like a balloon underwater. So yes, they're confused. Yes, they're wrestling with it. But beneath all that mental noise, the core of this energy is hopeful, endearing, and disarmingly innocent. It's the kind of energy that makes even the most guarded person want to believe in magic again. And that's what makes this connection so powerful. It's not logical, it's not practical, but it's undeniably real. And here's the part where the energy shifts again, because as sweet and innocent as it feels underneath, there's also this tension, this push and pull that makes me sit back for a second and go, okay, this person's confused, they're conflicted. Oh, it's almost like they've got one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake at the exact same time. And you know what happens when you do that, right? The car doesn't go anywhere. It just groans, stalls, makes that horrible noise. So that's what this feels like. They want to move toward you, but something inside them keeps yanking them back. And I'll be honest, it's not easy to tap into this energy because it does feel restrictive. It's like there's a tight belt around their chest. They know the connection is real. They know the feelings are deeper than anything they've experienced before. But at the same time, it scares them. It challenges them. Because let's be real, when you've been living your life in a certain rhythm, going through the motions, clocking in and out, keeping everything neat and predictable, and then suddenly somebody like you crashes in, everything shifts. Suddenly they're not just coasting anymore. Suddenly they're aware of how flat their life had become before you showed up. And maybe that's the real conflict. You entered their life when things were safe. Not exciting, not magical, not deeply fulfilling, just safe. Stagnant even. They were following routines, doing the things they thought they were supposed to do, convincing themselves that was enough. Maybe it was work, maybe it was a relationship that lacked spark, maybe it was just the daily grind. And then here you come, this burst of energy, this living, breathing reminder that life is supposed to feel alive. And now they're torn. Do they stay in the safe lane or do they risk everything and follow this pull toward you? I'll give you an example from my own day because it mirrors this. Earlier, I was standing in the kitchen trying to decide if I should make something healthy or just grab fast food. And I stood there way too long staring at the fridge like it had the answers. That's exactly the vibe of this person's energy. They're staring at their own feelings like, what do I even do with this? They want the thing that nourishes them, the thing that makes them feel alive. You. But it's easier to grab the safe option, the one they're used to, even if it doesn't actually satisfy. That's the conflict they're in. And it goes deeper because this isn't just about you, it's about what you represent. You represent change, you represent a new timeline. And change, no matter how exciting, is terrifying to someone who's been stuck in cycles. Think of it like living in a dimly lit room for years, and then somebody throws the curtains open. The light is beautiful, but it's also blinding. It hurts at first, and that's how they feel, exposed. You've exposed something in them, and you've shown them what love, connection, and passion could actually look like, and it conflicts with the life they built around comfort zones. They're thinking about you constantly, by the way. Don't doubt that. You're on their mind more than they probably even want you to be. It's like trying to stop a song from looping in your head. You can try to drown it out, but it just keeps coming back. They'll be doing something ordinary, like washing dishes or scrolling their phone, and suddenly their thoughts circle right back to you. It's maddening for them, and yet also irresistible. I'm getting this image of someone standing at a crossroads, pacing, overthinking every option. If I go this way, I risk it all. If I go that way, I stay safe but miserable. What do I do? That's their brain right now, and maybe that's why the energy feels weird for me to read because it's like I'm picking up on both sides of the tug of war. Their heart is all in, their soul is already with you. But their mind is screaming with fear, trying to keep control, trying to keep things tidy. It's ironic, isn't it? Because the very thing they want most, you, this connection, is the very thing that scares them. It's almost like being thirsty but afraid to drink water because you don't know if you'll drown. That's how dramatic the inner conflict is right now. And maybe you felt this tug on your end too. The inconsistency, the stop and go energy. That's not your imagination, that's them wrestling with themselves. I remember a time not long ago when I was working on a project that I didn't even care about. I was just doing it because I thought I had to. And I convinced myself that was responsible. But deep down, I was miserable. And then one day I stumbled into something that lit me up so much I couldn't ignore it anymore. But do you know what I did at first? I resisted it. I fought it because it meant I'd have to step out of the safe, the known. And that's exactly where this person is with you. You've lit them up, and instead of running full speed into it, they're hesitating at the door. And yet, despite the conflict, despite the confusion, the connection doesn't die. It doesn't fade. That's how you know it's real. Because no matter how hard they try to bury it under logic or excuses, it keeps resurfacing. It keeps nagging at them. You're the itch they can't scratch, the thought they can't silence, the flame they can't blow out. And that's why the conflict feels so sharp, because this isn't something they can walk away from easily, even if they wanted to. So yeah, right now they're in that space of inner war. But let me be clear, that war only exists because of how deep their feelings actually run. If this was shallow, if this was nothing, they wouldn't be conflicted, they just walk away. The very fact that they're so confused is proof that this is real. Proof that you've touched them in a way they can't shake. And then here's where it all flips, because in the middle of all that confusion, all that conflict, you come along. And listen, I need you to really hear me when I say this. You are not like anyone else. And I don't mean that in a cliche way, like, oh, you're special, you're unique. No, I mean it in the real way, the undeniable way. You're rare, you're ambitious, you're magnetic without even trying to be. And that's why people can't shake you once you cross their path. You're built different, period. You stand out without effort. You don't need to beg for attention. You don't need to mold yourself into what people expect. You just walk into a room and people feel you. And that's why this person is so shook. Because let's be honest, how often do people really encounter someone who makes them stop in their tracks, who makes them question everything they thought they knew about love, connection, about themselves? That doesn't happen every day, but with you, it did. I honestly feel like the universe places you in front of certain people on purpose, almost like you're part of their wake-up call. Like, Hey, remember that life isn't supposed to be dull. Remember that love is supposed to make your heart race. That's the effect you carry. You walk into someone's story like a plot twist. They thought they had it all figured out, and then you show up and blow the roof off their expectations. I had this moment the other day at the grocery store. I was just there for something simple: milk, bread, the basics. But I passed this little kid who was holding his mom's hand, and when he saw this giant display of balloons, his whole face lit up. Like jaw dropped, eyes wide, pure magic. And I realized that's exactly how people look at you. You're that balloon display in the middle of somebody's boring grocery run. You're the reminder that wonder exists, that joy exists, that something bigger than routine exists. And here's what's wild: you don't even have to try. It's just who you are. The way you speak, the way you move, the way you carry yourself, it makes people pause and think, wait, people like this are real? It gives them hope. Hope that love isn't dead, that kindness still exists, that authenticity hasn't been erased by the world. You literally shift the way people see reality just by showing up as yourself. And I know you might not even realize the impact you have, because to you, it probably feels natural. You've been walking through life this way, just doing you. But to someone else, it's life-altering. You're that moment in a movie where the soundtrack changes, where the whole energy of the story pivots because something important just entered the scene. That's you. You're the plot twist. And let's get real, this is why people get hooked on you. This is why they can't forget you. Because you're not just a fleeting vibe, you're not just a good time, you're an experience. You leave fingerprints on people's souls. They meet you once, and years later, they're still comparing everyone else to you. That's the kind of impact we're talking about here. I remember once I met someone who just radiated authenticity. They weren't famous, they weren't flashy, they weren't even trying to impress anyone. But the way they looked me in the eye, the way they carried themselves, it stuck with me. And I never forgot them. That's the exact energy I feel you carry. You might not be aware of it, but you leave a trail everywhere you go. People might move on with their lives, but deep down, they're always like, dang, that person was different. And this particular someone, the one we've been talking about, they felt it instantly. That's why their feelings are so deep, even if they don't understand them. Because when you walked into their life, you didn't just show up as another person. You showed up as a mirror, a reminder, a spark. You reminded them of the version of themselves they buried under routine, under responsibilities, under fear. And that's powerful, that's scary. But it's also healing. You're like that song that comes on unexpectedly, the one you didn't know you needed to hear until it played. And suddenly you're crying in your car or smiling at nothing. That's the impact you have. You awaken people, you stir emotions they thought were dead. You flip the switch inside them that says, this is what it's supposed to feel like. And that's not something people forget. And even when you're not around, even if you haven't spoken in weeks, months, or longer, the imprint is there. They're sitting in their quiet moments, replaying your laugh, your words, your energy. They don't even want to be haunted, but they are. And it's not a haunting that hurts. It's a haunting that heals. It's a reminder. And honestly, that's why they're so conflicted, because the impact you've had on them is too big to box away, too real to pretend it didn't happen. So when I say you're rare, I mean it. You're not the type of person who blends into the background. You're the type of person people tell stories about years later. I once knew someone who changed the way I thought about everything. That's you. That's the impact. And this person, this energy, knows it. They feel it in their bones. And that's why they can't stop thinking about you. And the thing about you, the thing that makes all of this so wild, is that you are an enigma. Do you get what I'm saying? You're not the type of person people can just figure out. You're not a math problem they can solve with one formula, not a book they can skim and know the ending. No, you're like a dream people carry inside their minds. The fantasy version of love, the one they never actually believe they'll encounter in real life, and then you walk in. Flesh and blood, laughter and eyes, presence and energy, and it scrambles everything. It makes people sit back and go, wait, so this actually exists? That's the exact kind of energy I'm picking up here. And listen, I truly believe the universe is deliberate with how it moves you around. You don't just happen into people's lives by coincidence, even when it seems mundane. Like bumping into someone at school, chatting with them at work, or meeting through some ordinary little event. That's not random. Spirit works through the everyday. Spirit works through the smallest cracks. And with you, it's even more obvious, because people who meet you don't just remember the encounter, they replay it, they analyze it, they sit with it long after you've gone. Which brings me to this. You've absolutely got someone lingering in your energetic field right now. And not in a creepy way, not in that heavy karmic way we've talked about before. This feels softer, but it's present. It's like static electricity. You don't see it, but if you get close enough, you feel the charge. And I keep hearing, pay attention to your dreams. Because dreams right now, they're not just dreams. They're messages. They're portals. They're spirit's way of giving you previews, hints, nudges. You might already know what I'm talking about. Have you been dreaming of this person lately? Maybe you see their face in flashes or hear their voice but can't quite make out the words. Or maybe it's more symbolic. You dream of their car, or their name pops up somewhere in neon letters, or you keep seeing the initials that tie right back to them. That's not random. That's the universe weaving clues into your sleep, because sometimes your mind can't process what your soul already knows when you're awake. And I'll tell you, this week for me has been nothing but synchronicities. I kept hearing the same phrase over and over, didn't get off the ground. And I knew exactly what that meant when I sat down to read this energy. Because for so many of you, this connection I'm talking about, it never had its full chance. It's unfinished. It's that story you look back on like, what if? What could it have been if timing wasn't off? If fear didn't get in the way? If circumstances lined up differently? That's what's circling here. Think of it like a plane taxiing on the runway. The engines are roaring, the seats are full, everything is ready. But then, right before takeoff, something stops it. The plane never leaves the ground. That's what this feels like. The energy between you and this person had all the potential, all the fire, all the right ingredients. But for whatever reason, it never lifted. And because of that, there's this lingering, unfinished quality. And unfinished energy, it has a way of circling back. It doesn't disappear. It hangs in the air, waiting for its opening. And here's the thing, this unfinished energy is why you keep noticing the signs. The repeated numbers, the songs on shuffle, the random moments that feel like deja vu. Maybe you're driving and suddenly their name is on a billboard. Maybe you're scrolling and their initials pop up in a completely unrelated context. Or maybe you just get that tug in your gut, that feeling like their spirit is brushing against yours. That's the energy asking to be acknowledged. I'll share something small from my own week, just so you know I practice what I preach. I was walking past a coffee shop I haven't been to in months, and right there on the chalkboard sign outside was the exact phrase I had been journaling about the night before. And I stopped, I laughed, I shook my head, because that's how spirit works. It shows up in the ordinary, and I feel like that's exactly what's happening with you and this connection. The reminders are sneaking in through the cracks, whispering, this isn't done yet. And I know, you might be tempted to brush it off, to say, it's just coincidence, but tell me, how many coincidences have to pile up before you call it a pattern? That's what spirit is doing right now. It's showing you the same symbols over and over, because the energy between you and this person still has weight, still has meaning, still has threads waiting to be tied together. Now, does that mean you're supposed to chase them? No. Does it mean you're supposed to bend over backwards? Absolutely not. What it means is honor the signs. Honor the fact that this connection didn't vanish into thin air just because it didn't get off the ground before. Honor that there's still something here, even if it's unfinished, even if it's messy. Because the more you recognize it, the more clarity you'll gain about whether this energy is meant to return or whether it's simply teaching you something bigger about yourself. But make no mistake, somebody is still tethered to you. They might be quiet, they might be distant, they might even be pretending they've moved on. But the universe is snitching on them every time their name crosses your path, every time they slip into your dreams. You can't fake energy. And the energy, it's still here, lingering, waiting, wondering. So when I say pay attention to your dreams, I mean it. Write them down, notice the patterns, notice the signs, because spirit is guiding you through them. And the phrase, didn't get off the ground, that's not an ending, that's a pause. That's the universe saying, hold on, this story isn't finished yet. And here we go again. That forbidden love energy just keeps circling back. It won't leave. It's almost like no matter how much I try to read around it, it comes crashing in anyway. And the thing is, if this person actually followed their heart all the way, if they surrendered fully to what they're feeling, it would overwhelm them. Not in a bad way, but in that I don't even have words for this kind of way. Because how do you explain a connection that doesn't make sense on paper but makes perfect sense in the soul? You can't. And that's what terrifies them. That's what magnetizes them all at once. You two are different. That much is clear. Maybe you come from different walks of life. Maybe your personalities don't align in the ways the world would expect. Maybe you've got different paths, different choices, different ways of seeing things. And yet, despite all of that, you feel like two sides of the same coin. That's what makes this connection so magnetic. It shouldn't work. It shouldn't make sense. And still, here it is, defying logic, pulling you both into its orbit. You know what it reminds me of? Magnets. If you've ever held two magnets close together, you know what I'm talking about. You try to keep them apart. You try to angle them so they don't snap. But the pull is undeniable. Even if your hand shakes, even if you hold them back, eventually they just click. And that's what this energy feels like. You can fight it, you can deny it, you can try to control it, but the magnetism wins. And that's why it feels complicated, because when something is so magnetic, so unexplainable, it challenges everything you thought you knew about how love or connection is supposed to look. It's like the universe is saying, forget the rules, forget the timelines, forget the logic. This is bigger than that. And that's scary, it's overwhelming, but it's also beautiful. Because how often do you get to experience something that makes you believe in magic again? I'll share this little moment from my week because it fits perfectly. I was sitting in my car, waiting at a stoplight, and across the intersection there were these two birds flying in opposite directions. For a second it looked like they'd miss each other completely, but then, almost like they planned it, they looped around and flew side by side, and I thought, that's it, that's this connection. Two completely different directions, two different skies, and still somehow they find themselves flying together. That's what you and this person embody. And the timing of it all, that's the wildest part, because you didn't just stumble into each other's lives for no reason. You came in when hope needed to be restored, when life was heavy or flat or just stuck in autopilot. That's why it hit so hard, because this connection wasn't just about attraction, it was about reminding each other that life still holds surprise, that love still holds depth, that magic hasn't left the world. That's the gift you both gave one another, whether you realized it at the time or not. And the more time that passes, the more meaning it all carries, because it's not fading. You get what I mean? Usually when something isn't logical, when it doesn't fit, it fizzles out eventually. But this keeps growing, like a seed planted in the dark soil. You might not see it above ground, but beneath the surface, the roots are spreading, deepening. And every day, every week, the connection gets more undeniable. That's why it feels complicated, because even with distance, even with silence, even with circumstances in the way, the bond doesn't weaken, it deepens. And that's what's throwing this person off. They thought maybe it would pass. They thought maybe it was just infatuation, just a spark, just one of those temporary phases. But it hasn't gone away. It's only gotten stronger. And now they're left wondering, what does this mean? Why does it keep growing? Why do you still matter this much to me? And you feel it too, don't you? Maybe not in the same way, maybe not in the same words, but you feel that tug in your chest when you think of them. You feel that ache in your gut when their energy brushes up against yours. That's not just nostalgia. That's not just wishful thinking. That's the reality of a bond that's bigger than circumstance. And here's the kicker. The more they resist it, the stronger it pulls. That's why I say it's magnetic. That's why I say it's complicated, because they can't fully embrace it, but they also can't fully escape it. They're caught in between. And you're the one they orbit around, whether they admit it or not. So yeah, maybe you're from different walks of life. Maybe you're not supposed to fit together in the way people expect. But love doesn't ask for permission. Connection doesn't wait for perfect timing. And this energy between you and this person is proof of that. It's proof that sometimes the most complicated connections are also the most important ones. And I keep hearing this, the universe doesn't waste energy. If this bond was meaningless, if it was just fleeting, you wouldn't still feel it. They wouldn't still feel it, but you do. They do. And that's because it's meant to be acknowledged. It's meant to be understood eventually, even if right now it just feels overwhelming. So when I say this is complicated, I don't mean it's doomed. I mean it's layered. It's bigger than logic, bigger than circumstance. It's one of those connections that leaves fingerprints on your life forever. And the more time goes on, the more you'll both see that the meaning only gets deeper. And here's where we hit the heart of it, the choice. Because make no mistake, the universe didn't just place you in this person's life for fun. No, this feels deliberate, intentional, almost like the universe put a mirror in front of them and said, here, decide. Do you want to keep walking the same path of mediocrity, the same cycles, the same routines that don't light you up? Or are you brave enough to choose something different, something alive, something new? That's the energy here, and that's why it feels so heavy. Because choices are never simple when they touch the soul. Right now, though, there's confusion on both sides. Don't think it's just them. You felt it too. That tug of war between, I know this is real, but what if it's not meant to be? You're questioning yourself just as much as they're questioning themselves. It's like you're both standing at the edge of a cliff, staring at the water below, wondering if the jump will be exhilarating or if it'll hurt like hell. And neither one of you can quite take the leap yet. And let's be real, there are blocks. That's not just in your head, I can feel them. Maybe it's age differences, one of you feels too old, too young, like the timing doesn't line up. Maybe it's distance, you're in two different places and geography becomes this invisible wall. Or maybe it's just life circumstances, obligations, responsibilities, fears about what people would think. Whatever the details are, it's like the universe handed you both this gift but wrapped it in a complicated package. And yet, despite all that, when you're around this person, it feels like home. You know exactly what I mean, that calmness, that sense of belonging, that rare feeling that you don't have to perform or explain or prove yourself. They see you. Not just the version of you the world claps for, but the messy, raw, real you. And that's why it's so hard to shake, because how often do you find that? How often do you meet someone who looks at you and it feels like they already know the chapters you never even read out loud? And here's the tricky part, insecurity creeps in, on both sides. You might find yourself thinking, they're out of my league, they're too much for me, I can't measure up. And at the exact same time, they're sitting there thinking, no, they're too good for me, they deserve better, I'll never be enough. Do you see the mirror here? It's like you're both reflecting the same doubt back at each other. Instead of just admitting the truth, you're both scared because it matters too much. It reminds me of a moment I had not long ago. I was getting dressed for an event and I must have changed my outfit 5 times. Each time I'd look in the mirror, I'd pick myself apart. This doesn't look right. This makes me look weird. People are going to notice this flaw. But when I finally got there, not a single person cared about my outfit. They were just happy I showed up. That's what this insecurity feels like. Both of you are picking yourselves apart, convinced the other person will notice every flaw, when in reality, the other person is just grateful you exist. And that's why the connection feels both magnetic and terrifying, because you're not dealing with surface level stuff here. This isn't about attraction that fades or small talk that dies. This is about recognition. It's about being seen in a way that shakes you. And when people feel truly seen, they either step closer in vulnerability or they run back into safety. And right now, you're both wobbling between those two choices. But don't miss the point. The very existence of this connection is the gift. The universe doesn't bring these kinds of energies together unless there's meaning. Even if you're not together right now, even if circumstances are messy, the connection itself is the catalyst. It's what forces you both to look at yourselves differently. It's what makes you question whether playing it safe is really worth it when there's something this alive tugging at your spirit. And let's be honest, mediocrity was never meant for you. Not for them either. You didn't come here to live half a life, to settle for lukewarm when you know fire exists. And this person knows it too. That's why they can't forget you, why you can't forget them. Because once you've tasted that fire, once you've felt at home in another soul, everything else feels bland. So yes, there are blocks. Yes, there are insecurities. Yes, there's confusion. But all of that is proof of how much this matters. If it was meaningless, you wouldn't be overthinking it. If it was shallow, it wouldn't scare you. The very fact that you're both caught in this mirror of doubt tells me the connection is real, it's deep, and it's forcing you both to grow. And maybe that's the real choice here. Not just whether you choose each other, but whether you choose to step out of fear, step out of insecurity, and step into the version of yourself that believes you are worthy of love this big. Because the truth is, you are, they are. And that's what makes this so beautifully complicated. And this right here, is why the whole thing feels like destiny. That's the word that keeps echoing in my head as I sit with this destiny. Because no matter how complicated, no matter how many blocks or insecurities, no matter how much you both second guess yourselves, the connection itself doesn't fade. It doesn't die out like a passing crush. It lingers, it weaves itself into your days, into your nights, into your dreams. It refuses to be forgotten. And when something refuses to be forgotten, that's when you know it's bigger than just you. That's when you know the universe has a hand in it. It feels like your paths are meant to cross again. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but the imagery I keep seeing is airplanes in the sky, 2 different flights, 2 different directions, but their trails intersect. For a brief moment, they line up perfectly. And that's the sense I get here. No matter how far apart you drift, no matter how different your lives may look, the intersection is written. The meeting point exists. That's why it feels unfinished, because it is unfinished. And crossroads. That's another image I keep feeling. You know how when you're walking through a small town and 2 paths intersect and for a moment you're face to face with someone you didn't expect to see? That's the energy. You'll find yourselves back at that crossroad. The timing may be different, the circumstances may be different, but the souls will recognize each other instantly. Both of you are in the middle of growth right now. That's why it's not aligning yet. You're learning, they're learning, you're developing into a more secure version of yourself, and so are they. It's like 2 trees growing in different directions. On the surface, it looks like you're far apart, but underneath, the roots are stretching, reaching, deepening, and one day those roots touch. That's what this connection feels like. It's still growing, even if you can't see it above the ground yet. And let me say this as clearly as I can. This message is confirmation for whoever needed to hear it. You're not imagining this connection. You're not crazy. You're not delusional. You're not making something out of nothing. It's real. It's valid. And the reason it feels so strong is because it is strong. This person is deeply confused. Yes. Their feelings run deeper than they know how to handle. Yes. But that confusion doesn't erase the truth of the bond. If anything, the confusion is proof of how big it is. But here's where I have to get real with you. I can't tell you what will happen next. That's not how this works, because destiny isn't about knowing the exact details in advance. It's about trusting the unfolding. All I hear loud and clear is this: let fate play out. Don't chase, don't force, don't overanalyze every moment until you lose your joy. Step back into yourself. Come home to yourself. And I know that can feel frustrating. You want answers, you want timelines, you want certainty. But destiny doesn't unfold on demand. It unfolds when you're ready. And the way you get ready is by focusing on you, on your passions, on your ambitions, or on the parts of your life that light you up. Because when you shine in your own lane, when you build your own world, that's when the alignment happens naturally. That's when fate weaves the 2 threads back together without you even having to tug. I'll tell you something from my own life. There was a friendship once that meant the world to me, but life pulled us apart. For years, I wondered if I'd ever see that person again. I let it go, not because I didn't care, but because I couldn't control it. And then, years later, out of nowhere, we ran into each other at the most random place. It was effortless, no forcing, no chasing, just timing. That's how fate works. It doesn't need your micromanaging, it just needs your patience. And that's the energy here. Something is meant to happen, something is meant to unfold, but it's not meant to be pushed or pressured. It's not meant to be wrangled into your timing. This is one of those connections where the universe is saying, trust me, I've got this, focus on you, the rest will align when the time is right. So be patient, be kind to yourself, stop questioning whether you imagined it. You didn't. Stop doubting whether it matters. It does. Stop picking apart every sign, just let it be. Let the story breathe. Because the truth is, if it's written, if it's destiny, if it's meant, it will find its way no matter what. And in the meantime, pour yourself into your own fire. Build your passions, follow your dreams, love your life as it is right now. Because this season of growth is shaping you into the exact version of yourself who will be ready when the timing finally clicks. Don't waste it worrying about what you can't control. I need you to hear this. This is destiny. This is real. And the only thing required of you right now is patience. Patience and trust. The rest will unfold. I love you so much.